Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jose, thanks so much for joining us. I'm super excited to get to hang out with you. I miss you now that you're not in Oregon anymore. I don't get to visit your studio, which is always such a treat. I love seeing, particularly when I visited your studio, I really love seeing all the, you work in a way that you created this sort of a backlog of discs, and I'm always like, gosh, what is he going to put? What surfaces are going to go on these wild forms? So I not that you haven't sent me pictures every now and again, but I always miss seeing that. So that was a really, really awesome treat. So yeah, I figure we could kind of just start, if you wouldn't mind, just for folks that don't know as much about you as I do, if you want to just kind of give a little bit of your background, kind of like how did you get into clay, what introduced you to clay, and where did it go from there, and how did you get to kind of where you're at today? And I'll start just walking around the show and showing off some of the exhibition, and certainly stop through the story if you see something you want to talk about. Otherwise, we can kind of come back and talk about any specific pieces after too. So, yeah, what got you into it?
Well, I started 96. I was looking to start. I was more interested in sculpting. I was doing sculpting in my early ages in middle school.
With clay or other materials?
It was clay.
It was clay. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
It was clay, and close to my neighborhood, it was a little like pet, we will call it. It was like you can go and dig it. People never dig it, but you knew because all the kids go around and play, with the mud, because it was the elasticity of the clay, and that's what attracted everybody, like that feel encounter, that the first encounter to the softness, the connection to the material. And so it was an assignment in middle school in a classical educación artística, like education of, technically it's to appreciation of the art. But the school kind of teach you to become like industrial art, because they teach mechanical drawing and all those aspects of the arts, right?
Like the technical kind of.
Yeah, I think that used to be like that here in the 50s. They prepare students to become like drafters for engineers or architects, So that was part of the whole school and the assignment. And from there, I start getting interested in the modeling materials, and discovered clay. I was like 14, 15, around there. And then from there, I started sculpting a lot, and like the modeling clay that is made like with oil, like they put oil in it, it never get dry.
Yep.
So I did a lot of stuff like that, but I was frustrated because you do a lot of stuff, and then if you get too hot, it melts.
Yeah.
You melt away you did, like you spent 3 hours, and it's like, oh, it's gone. But it teaches you the whole process, right, of no attachment to the object, because you are in an experimenting state. And from there, I started a program at the University of the Andes. It was a program for ceramic only. It was more like the name of it was through the university, but this university, I think that happened in everywhere in this, I don't know, 60s, 70s, even 80s.
Okay.
Of course, I went in the 90s, but that's the model start when the ceramic was seen more like a vocational, an artisan training, So the school, especially, it was a program for 4 years, and utilitarian. Technically you become like a technician for utilitarian wear. So it was they don't even allow me to put like handles with crazy little faces or things. It was like, no, that leave you for your home, And from there, I did 3 years. They give me my base, my what the broad base, to understanding the whole process, how to fire, how to make glazes,
Yeah.
how to fix the problems that always come, between the
Mhm.
fitting glazes and the clay bodies and the
Yeah, so
thermal.
they were giving you like chemistry then, right? I mean, like some
Yeah, I took,
chemistry.
well,
Yeah.
the thing was like 1 year, I took only hand built, like
Hmm.
coil and hand built. The second year was drawing. And the last year was,
Okay.
I mean, it was the program for 4, but I did 3. So I
Okay.
dropped out with different circumstances. Over there, it's not that flexible that you can do like go to school and work. Over there,
Oh, okay.
you go to school. So that's why I never finished. But it gave me
That's okay.
enough.
I dropped out too, if it makes you feel any better.
But well, I'm not too attached to that, but it gave me enough uh, understanding, appreciation of the material to
Mm-hmm.
to let me understand the whole process, right? Because it's very important to have that base of understanding the fire in the adjusting glazes to fit the clay or the vice versa, and the whole process, right? Because
Yeah.
if you know it become a frustrating thing, and you will leave it, right? If
Yep.
you are 100% self-taught, but like I was talking with somebody say you are neutral. You went to school, but you don't. You're not like I'm in between both things, and I don't care. I don't believe in labels.
I think that's something I really appreciate about you and your work. I don't think you go into this like deep academic place that some would with work like this or anything that's abstract, to like
Yeah,
make attempts to understand it. And I think I just wanted to say that I really appreciate that. You talked about obviously technique and design and
yeah.
expression, but
So
you just go for it.
I did it 3 years, and after that, I never. So I quit, and I went to work with a company that manufactured plastic bags. And I did a
Okay.
little bit of that. I understand it was interesting because all the process with PVC and how the moldings and the extruded parts, everything. I did it like a year. And in the side, I was working part time too with an architect, and I became the model maker for them, and
Okay.
and and plus on top of that, I was doing for thesis for the students, the final projects. So I was a model maker for them. So the joke is how many architectural degrees I have.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So
it
those
was
type
a
of
joke
models
between my
were those
friends.
type of models like
Yeah, the
what do you want to say?
last,
Like buildings, right? Like those type
yeah,
of things.
the
You're
maquette.
sculpting. Yeah, maquette. Yeah, yeah. So you're like sculpting a maquette of a
Yeah.
building. Okay,
Well,
interesting.
it's like, it's a technical part. You read the blueprints and you figure out the scale and do the whole later project, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So that gave me the sense of that side of the architectural part of the understanding of design and the utility of a building or a park. Everything has some at some at some point have the utility form, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you made a building, and it's not only for look like a beauty culture. It has to give a service to the community, and the interaction with the urban design. It's a lot of stuff, but I walking only on the top of the subject. So I did that for almost 3 years, on and off. And after I was like the clay was calling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I came and I started like, okay. At that time, I don't have any studio access because the university was like No, you cannot. You have to be enrolled, to use the facilities. But I have like three classmates. They finished the program at the open studios. They were all like really
Okay.
into the utilitarian wear,
Making
and
pots.
then they were really like Mackenzie was the idol for them.
Okay. Okay.
They were very in the utilitarian.
Yeah.
But they'll. So once in a month, I used to fire they let me use the whole kiln for me for my sculptural pieces, right? So
Yeah.
and there I start experimenting with different local minerals and pigments and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but there I was only do like figurative, like surrealistic forms, exploring with mixing the architectural forms with human faces, arms, but it was very experimental, right? But I start like, okay, I started incorporating the pot. The vessel was already indoctrinated on me because I did 3 years, of
Mm-hmm.
learning to make like the perfect China set. That's what the whole deal was.
Yeah. Yeah.
The perfect like 500 pieces China set. That was the last project for that school. It was kind of crazy, but
And it was really 500 pieces? Was it?
yeah. You
Oh,
had to. I
wow.
mean,
Holy
like
cow.
coffee pots,
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
the
Yeah.
coffee set, the tea set, the for the for the soup plates, the dinner plate, the appetizer plates, the saucer for the cups. Oh, it was like crazy, and everything had to be like
That,
meticulous. I mean, you can develop. It's kind of crazy because when you start seeing all the students, we all were doing the same, and from there I started getting frustrated. I was like,
do you
but
mean like your styles were the same or doing the same number of
well,
pieces?
because it becomes so like repetitive
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, that technically we were indoctrinated by the professors, and the
Mm-hmm.
professors have their own style, and it passed through to the students.
Yeah.
So they pass through to the students, and you start doing the same. And after I was outside the circle, I started like noticing the whole deal. Like, oh my god, look at that! Like we all are doing the same thing like the professor. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no like embedded thought into the material, right? So start becoming really interesting how I can embed it thought into material. So that's mean finding your own ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Finding your voice.
Yeah. And so I started experimenting with different models. I did a lot of glazing. I even experimenting a little with the how you call it, the temaku that is
Uh-huh.
very famous for
Yeah.
utilitarian wear. But I started using it in many different ways. And some were like a disaster, but it was a good way to learn. You know, I
Mm-hmm.
never.
Mm-hmm.
I think the failure is more important than success in that way with the glaze.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be aware what you're doing, of course. Like, and now we have been curious of why this happened, how this happened. So from there, start like finding like, okay, glaze is a way to embed that into the material, but not all the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like a painter. You can give it oils or acrylic to a painter, but it's only half of the story. So, and after that, I started like experimenting with the form and the glazes. I went very rigid architectural forms that for a few years I was walking a line that was like too. Uh, the thing with geometry is hard to distinct itself. Like who made this, who made that, because it's a square, lines, triangles, circles. right?
Mm-hmm.
And after it, I start like, okay, this is not like geometrical. Geometry is a beautiful form. It's like the language of the universe, but you gotta go deeper to make it to embed it. You touch into the material, but at the same time, clay don't it create a barrier. You cannot go like that, create those three-dimensional forms that go it bring you in. And I'm talking about the geometrical forms, like the
Mm-hmm.
complex lines. And then clay, they have a limit. Is the 2D to three-dimensional is a barrier there. They require maybe in the future. Well, I start seeing that 3D printing stuff they start making really interesting forms and objects through the computer and the printer, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm like, no, I feel a little cold in there. I want something warm, something. I wanna. I start like I love nature. I like hiking. I start hiking really young in the Andes where I'm from,
Mm-hmm.
and I start like, okay, there is all the palette that I always been looking for. It was in front of me without realize it, until you go and walk in the woods and stop and you start seeing all around it. Like that's it. It's all there around me. You only have to like let it in, right? And after
Mm-hmm.
that, so I start experimenting with more of the glazes to fit it to create those colors, right? And so that's what
Okay.
you have for the pieces you have right now. Those are the glazes I've been working in the last, I don't know, I would say almost 10 years. I use four
Wow.
glazes, and the four glazes I all then I'm been like putting it apart and taking it apart like building a car and
Mm-hmm.
taking back apart, so to understand the whole and the diversity of them, they're so interesting.
Agreed.
So it's technically four glazes, and some I added a little uh, silicon carbide for that texture. That little one, they have like
Yeah, this
it's a
one.
little. This is the same base, but what I added is zinc oxide and silicon carbide.
And I haven't seen you do much of that. Maybe it's just those haven't come through our gallery, but I thought that was a nice departure from some of your smoother surfaces with that texture. That's
Well,
kind of a fun
I did
surprise.
a series for the Miami Art Fair in Ireland.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was based on Gabriel Garcia Marquez novel, A Hundred Years
Mm-hmm.
of Solitude, about the massacre of the banana workers, right?
Okay.
For me, it was trying to find a way to show like the decay of the the banana, trying to embed that the whole idea, like how like things start decaying and disappear, and
Mm-hmm.
so the history. Gabriel Garcia Marquez come and he fictionized the history, the real history. So the people start questioning it was really true, it really happened or not,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Because he's now also is the realismo mágico. So and after I was reading a lot before I was I spent 3 months in Paris, in France, in a residency, and I feel like again like an immigrant. So being a Venezuelan, I was like, well, that's the way of life for us. Because I
Mm-hmm.
don't speak, I understand some French, but I don't speak it, right? Because some similar words to Spanish, but I can understand some stuff. But I feel like getting distracted from the whole, you know, society thing going on around you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I start reading back again, like Gabriel Garcia Marquez, a lot of audiobooks. Uh, Borges, Cortázar, Julio Cortázar, all the novel, the novelists from South Latin America, you know, and Carlos Fuentes. It was another, you know, to restart the fire inside, you know, like light the match again. When you tell like it's too much, you know, you get lost in the darkness. I see the light of the tunnel. So that's why it became with the series of the bananas for the art fair, and I've been so from there start experimenting with that, adding zinc oxide and silica carbide, and what was the other thing I was using? Oh, magnesium carbonate to create those textures. But I was like becoming I like that the textures, but it's something like a crazy fever right now with those glazes.
Yeah, no, I see a lot of that, or the drippy, the loopy.
So, and somewhere looking for the textures, right, to bring some like create the positive and negative pace in the forms, so you feel the abruptness sometimes, like the mountains, you know, they're so beautiful and the other side is like a cliff. So I start using those glazes, but I want a solid texture. I don't want to go like crazy dripping, you know.
Yeah.
It's only like an introduction to enhance the design, well, the form of the idea of what I'm trying to put on the pieces, you know.
Yeah, well, in this piece in particular, we were talking about with that texture. I mean, that's what I think is nice. I think it is an enhancement. It's not replacing form. You know, some of the, you know, which is just a different style of work that I see some artists do, where they're using that texture and that sort of frothing to create form. Whereas I feel like where you're applying it, like the many surfaces you apply, it is to accentuate or bring attention to some of that form there.
The thing with those glazes, they absorb the whole form. If they become their own, you know, you cannot recognize what was there before. So that's the interesting part of the glaze, but it's like on one hand give you and the other take, you know. So it's a balance between they all have to.
I really liked you starting to talk about geometry, because I know a lot of people kind of ask about that. And what I love about your, you know, one of the many things I love about your work is you sort of humanized that, right? You talk about nature, and of course I know geometry exists in nature, but I feel like the way that you are incorporating a sense of geometry in an organic way, it's not sterile. It's still, and you know, it shines through with the work. Your work is so expressive, but you are, you know, using something that could be not as expressive. Like when you started to talk about, you know, 3D printing and things, you know, a lot of times when I see these 3D printed stuff, I think they're beautiful. I think they're geometric, but they don't have soul. They don't have that.
There's the essence is not there.
It isn't. Yeah. And that's,
I mean, there's the part of the beautiful geometrical patterns. We're attracted to it because we follow patterns, right? We like to figure out patterns. Patterns. So that's one of the things with it. But somebody will figure it out. You will see.
Yep. I mean, the other thing I like, some of your forms, you know, there is a symmetry. There's an abstractness, but there's like, you know, there's a front, and then there's, you know, there's a symmetry to how you're doing things. But it's not consistent with every form. So sometimes when you start to assume it, and I walk around you know, it's always fun unpacking your work and investigating each piece, because sometimes my mind goes to a place like, oh, I can put this against the wall because it's the same on both sides. And then I discover that there's these other nuances that make it not the same. You know what I mean? So there's been some, so many that I think are It's really fun that way.
I start the forms like I have an idea, right? And like I'm going like let's say like that piece, like okay, I'm gonna coil that and make this. But in the moment that you start doing it, something start revealing itself, right? Like, oh, look at this. Like, how about if I put this and push it down?
Like that
look at
starts
this.
to grow out, right? Or
Yeah. So
something there.
and the idea start like fitting the itself of the same design, and that is like it's like keeping. It's like music, you know. You try to keep the composition. You stop, and back, and I would say jazz, but I'm not much into. I like jazz, but like I think the most when I'm working with that the trend started the design the pieces, right, because I made the green form and start like throwing it coiling and add it in and start like actually I started walking around the piece, right, and start like let's see what what is sent back to me, like what the feedback, you know, like what I'm receiving from this object that I'm putting in, right? Because it's a dialogue. It's a dialogue between the object and the maker. And
when jazz composers talk about the music, I mean, that's, you know, there's a dialogue, right? They're going back and forth, and what you're describing is that improvisation between you and the material speaking back to you.
Yeah. So you have in your bag, you have all the knowledge to say, I'm gonna sing this song like Happy Birthday, right? You know that. But in the middle, you come and say, well, I gotta improvise, you know, and you gotta be. That's when the thing you start getting open to the improvisation and start moving on those grounds, you know, like okay, nothing, and it's a 50-50. You come with idea, but you have to be open to what they start forming in front of your eyes, and you have to. The other thing, you have to know when to stop.
Yeah.
You know, like
I feel like someone asked you this a long time ago in one of our openings, and I get asked this, or I've had this same question for myself in my own artwork is, you know, you push things. I remember talking about this in school actually with a teacher, you know, how far is too far, you know, when you're pushing something. My teacher would always say, you don't know until you've gone too far and then you pull it back a little bit, you know, like if you're experimenting with a color, with a texture, with a form. I felt like somebody asked you that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I felt like your answer, and it was with humility. It wasn't presumptuous, but you said something like, I push it just to the right amount. Like you and I remembered something to that effect, because I think of, you know, again, your work is so expressive, and you know, the forms are really like fluid but tight at the same time. And yeah, I wondered the same thing, like, oh, how many times did you just like totally mess this up, or like pushes it and is like, oh, yuck, I don't like where that went. But I think hearing you talk about your relationship with the material and that reference to jazz, or that communication, I see why I don't think you go there that much, you know, that when you perform with a piece, when you have a relationship with a piece, that it comes to a place that you're happy with, you know.
Yeah, the funny thing is like I say, yeah, I like jazz and all that. Well, the most I play in my studio when I'm working is audiobooks.
You're listening, yeah.
Audiobooks of all the books of Gabriel Garcia Marquez, or even I repeated Ernesto Sabato.
Okay.
You know? So it's like, so I'm in a dialogue between the what's going on in my background and the piece, right? And so I started like throwing back to the pieces what I'm hearing from the novels, you know, and I'm so I start laughing. And in the beginning, I was like that, like I push all the way and see how far I can go. So I was not like in that way. I was developed the part of the attachment that, oh no, and you get so like the piece collapses in front of you, and you get like, there you go, it's all gone, right? I was like, oh, this is amazing. It's like they open the door. It's like, okay, there is another gap where
Mm-hmm.
the whole uh, composition can go, and the possibilities start seem endless, right?
Yeah.
But always and so what I do is like, yeah, I'm put now because I've been doing it for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
like I understand uh, the feedback between me and the piece that when it's like, there's enough, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It
So
tells
it's
you.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's to have this be sensitive to the object, because those objects are it's a material. It have a limit, right? Your imagination don't have it. You isn't it's endless, but the
Mm-hmm.
material have some
Yeah.
until you start again pushing it until you find the gap and say, okay, there is. I can go now that way. And that's how I work with the whole process, for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I find in that way it's like when I start like really finding that I was walking into the studio and leaving all the influence behind and start working with, because you don't learn by yourself, right? You learn even in conscious or conscious what you learn in school and what you
Mm-hmm.
see, because we are visual beings. And but at a point I started realizing, okay, and between those dance that I say that you find that little gap is when I realized that's how I can really embed that into the materials,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that's the whole struggle and the whole thing. Like when you start feeling comfortable, this is some part inside of me is in there, right? It's that, and then like that texture just start playing. That like I want the like running melting stuff, but not like going like crazy. I want it something like
Mm-hmm.
suggested,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought this piece in particular was interesting in that sense,
Yeah,
because I knew it was intentional with your application to kind of get it to bead up in areas and start to move or
yeah,
appear as though it's going to move and drift, but
yeah.
still very
That's in
controlled.
Ngobi, and in Ngobi that I've been working for a while. I changed the recipe. Like I've been working a little bit with that to create the Ngobi
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
give you the texture, and after I fire it, I put the glaze on top.
Oh, okay. Okay. So these are on the bisque.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So it
I
looks
would not
like
have
the
known
thing
that
is
from
like
looking
that.
at it. Yeah. Yeah. I just assumed that was
I
just
play with
glaze.
the composition of the Ngobi and the glaze, so
Ah.
they can coexist together. They
Yeah.
don't crackle that much. It don't peel off. But
Yeah.
normally that's a problem with the Ngobis. Ngobis try to, like, when the firing process start like the clay start shrinking and the the Ngobi don't have the same rate and start peeling off. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
work a little with adjusting the glaze and the Ngobi and the clay
Yeah.
body. So it become like a dancing, performing with
Yeah.
the form.
Agreed. Agreed.
I know that there are now people doing the gummy glazes that don't have to like, but I wanna at the same time create like the painting effects, the broad strokes of the running. Yeah, like it's not like crazy exaggerating things peeling off. It's like a broad stroke. When you put a lot of oil in it and it run a little bit, but it's not
Yeah.
to give you that sense of texture.
Yeah. Yeah. There's obviously so much I like about your work and your philosophy, but I really think that you have there's a freedom in your work, right? How expressive it is, how organic it can be. but it's done in such a technically proficient and tight way. And I really, it's hard for me to think of too many people that really execute in that way. And that's what I think, that's why I value working with you so much and really admire your artwork, because you balance that. And you know, I love technical when I apply it to my artwork, but then I think I'm just too tight and it becomes sterile, you know, and not expressive.
Yeah, that's a fine line, you know. You cannot,
it is,
and
yeah.
that I learned that from the modeling maker, but from the maquettes, you know, like it had to be some fluidity.
Yeah.
You if you go too tight, you strangle the whole thing, and it's like become like an empty form, you know, and you don't trust it will be beautiful, but nothing else.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, this has been awesome, Jose. I mean, I know just from communications I've had with younger artists and other folks over the years that have been able to visit our gallery, both physically and virtually, like how inspiring your work is to them. You know, and I was trying to touch upon it, how it inspires me personally, but yeah, it's really special. Right? So I really appreciate you sharing some of this insight with us. And yeah, so I wanted to thank you for your time today, and I look forward to continuing to work with you and keep pushing stuff like this out into the world. You know, you're such a great artist to work with. So so thank you so much for everything you've been doing.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, my pleasure, man. My honor.
Okay.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you again, and we'll catch up soon, and I look forward to seeing your face soon.
Okay.
All right, man. Peace. Catch you later.
Peace. Bye bye.